Hello, Making Money Matter. My name is Dean Tuck. I'm the Managing Director at Dreadnought Resources, and I've got a special treat for you today. We have the legendary Carrie Stevenson here in the Dreadnought warehouse, and we're going to flip the tide today. So normally, Carrie, my favorite interviewer, is here, and I'm going to interview her and ask her some wonderful questions because we love Carrie to death, and we're very excited to get a bit of background story on Making Money Matter and the woman behind it.
Oh, Dean, thank you so much. And by the way, it's a little bit chilly over here in Perth, so luckily I've got a Dreadnought Resources jacket on because I haven't come prepared, because of course I was up in the Kimberley before coming here and it's hot up there.
Absolutely.
And then you said, come to the Dreadnought office and, we'll just have a bit of a chat. I thought I was interviewing you and you turned the tides on me. Ladies and gentlemen, the tide has turned.
Excellent. All right, Carrie, well, shall we get started?
Sure.
Nice and simple. What inspired you to start Making Money Matter?
Well, actually, a couple of reasons. One, I remember a friend of mine, Victoria, turned around and said, why don't you build up your own channel? And I was like, no, that's too scary. And I remember I came to you, and it was at a conference, it was Stu and McDonald's conference on the Gold Coast. I think it was almost a year ago to the day. In fact, it was. I'm pretty sure it was. And you all said, why don't you just do it? And I went, okay. And then you said to me, we'll support you. And you said to a couple of other people in the industry, would you support Carrie? Would you support Carrie? And you all said, yep. So I took a leap of faith. And you know what? I have to say thank you to you and everyone else that supported the channel, because it's been the best thing I've ever done. And I love bringing great content to our audience out there, which is growing.
Absolutely. Let's unpack that a little bit more, shall we, Carrie?
Uh-oh.
So we've got that last year there. Thank
Yep.
you very much. It's amazing watching your journey unfold.
Oh, thank you.
But before that, you were doing interviews. You were developing a brand. You've had an interest in gold and companies.
Yeah.
What sparked that? Let's go deeper.
Okay. Well, I'm first and foremost not a journalist. I'm an investor. So I'm an investor with a curious mind. So for me, I'm always asking questions about what are you doing and why should I give you my hard-earned money? So when I looked at asking the questions, I thought, well, actually, other people want to know this. It's why I started the Gold Conference as well. I'm fascinated with what is money, and gold is money, everything else is credit. So that's why the Gold Conference started, because I want to learn, but I think it's important that other people learn alongside me. So when you have the opportunity to create a platform where I can share the questions I'm asking to other people and and it helps them, why not do it? And I don't see it as a job. I absolutely love what I do.
Well, you can tell because your enthusiasm comes out, and you're one of the best interviewers I've ever met.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much.
So tell us more about this Gold Conference.
Well, that started 14 years ago, and I was actually doing quite a lot of conferences, and this was before you and I met each other, and I was doing a lot of conferences in resources, and I had a joint venture with Asmont, which ended in 2009, started up my own company, and I was doing lots and lots of events, and then my dad started to get a little bit sick, and I had to spend a lot more time with him, which I do not regret 1 second of, but it meant that I had to pare back a lot. But the one thing I would not give up was the Gold Conference. So I did everything in my power to continue to keep looking after Dad, but also have that enough time to do the Gold Conference. So it survived. Dad's no longer with us, but I know that he's very proud of what we've done. And he actually came to a few of the Gold Conference, sat in the front row, and came to the dinners. And
you've had some amazing guests on there. You've had Rick Rule. You have an amazing lineup again this year. Some great keynote talks coming through. That's coming up in August, I believe.
It's coming up from the 26th to the 28th of August, and I think people need to understand. And I know that Dreadnought Resources have got some gold drilling that will be announced at the conference, which is great. I'm really excited about that. But I think people don't understand that governments at the moment are out there printing currency into oblivion. So they need to understand gold as money and why it should play a part in their portfolio. But a lot of people don't understand it, and don't understand they're not investing in physical bullion. That's just a protection for their hard-earned wealth, in my opinion. And I can show that over many, many years. So at the Gold Conference, we're going to teach people about the role gold plays, but then we're going to introduce them to companies like yourself, where it's an equity side of things. Now, Yes, it's a little bit more risky than holding the physical bullion, but if you understand who's behind the company and what they're doing and you can talk to them face to face, I think that's really important. Most people don't understand equities, so I want to drive it out to a wider section of the Australian population, international population, and make sure people understand the opportunities out there, because I think we are at the start of the next bull market for gold and silver.
And silver. It's very exciting times ahead for us all.
Yeah, I think so.
Awesome. That was a good little one. Another question for you, Carrie. How do you decide which topics to cover on Making Money Matter, and why are they important to your audience?
Gosh, didn't get this one in advance. No, I'm just kidding. How do I decide which topics? Well, quite often I get feedback from our viewers. I get feedback saying, here's an interesting company, can you reach out to them? Or I've seen something, can you talk to them? I also get people reaching out to me, and then it's things that I'm interested in. I don't just cover resources. We cover biotech, we cover industrial, and then I get people like Rick Rule that comes on every now and again and talks about what he thinks and where he thinks the market's going. So it's always evolving, Dean. It's never, here's the year laid out in advance, because things change in the market and things happen. So I think, how do I decide who goes on the channel? It evolves all the time.
And how exciting is that for your followers?
Yeah.
And the people who tune in, they can reach out to you, who's so well connected with the industry, not just companies like us,
Yeah.
but everyone else that plays around the sphere, and you can go out there, seek them down, sit them down, and ask them the questions that people really want to hear. What a fantastic opportunity for your followers.
Yeah, and it's interesting. As you know, I've been incommunicado in the Kimberley for a few days, and when I finally got back online, my phone blew up with people talking about, oh my God, everyone's talking about the petrodollar, and the Saudis are not signing. I was like, what? What's going on? Oh, this is going to be huge for gold. So I did what I call an emergency briefing. I reached out to someone I know quite well, who really understand what's going on. And there's a lot of fake news out there. So I literally got back in communication yesterday, did a quick emergency briefing, and put it up on the channel. Because that's the sort of thing people want to know what's going on, and if something happens in the world, if I can reach out to someone and say, can you come on the channel quickly and tell us what's happening?
That's awesome. That is fantastic. As someone who connects with investors and companies, what advice would you give to companies like ours to raise our profile more effectively and efficiently?
I think you've got to be always visible and not overly visible. I think that there's a balance to be had. I think that as an investor, we want to hear from you on a regular basis. What are you doing? Where's the value going to come from? How are you looking after our hard-earned wealth as shareholders? And what should companies be doing? Well, you know, I run events, of course I'm going to say go to events, but I do believe that that's part of the mix. Communication is always key. And I'll give you a great example. I'm not going to mention the company's name, but I remember I was a shareholder of the company, and I must have reached out to this managing director 6 or 7 times. Never returned my call, never returned emails. So I sold all my shares. Because if you don't want to communicate with me as a shareholder, I don't want to give you my hard-earned cash. So I think that to me is really important. Who are your shareholders? How often do you communicate with them? Because I think people like to do business with people that they like, know, and trust. That's really important.
Absolutely. That is very important. And there's so many great opportunities.
Yeah.
Like you said, it's about finding that balance.
Yeah.
You have amazing conferences like the Gold Conference, like Stewie and RIU.
Yeah, love
like,
Stewie.
Like the guys at the Noosa Conference.
Yeah, Phil Dickinson.
Phil and Des, like absolute legends.
Shocking place to go, Noosa. Terrible.
Terrible. But great great events, great to get in front of shareholders. And there's also new platforms evolving like Investor Hub, which Dreadnought's gone big into this year, where investors can reach out directly, and that's all about, like you mentioned, improving that two-way communication.
Yeah.
And as we're in this communication revolution that we're in, there's so many opportunities coming out.
Yeah,
the videos with yourself.
I guess what I wanted to ask is, with Investor Hub, how does that work? And how do you pick and choose? Like, because you just said it, there's so many different things that, I mean, you could spend most of your life on the road, and you could also, but what is Investor Hub? How does that work?
So, like your investor, like your followers can reach out to you and
Yeah.
ask, Carrie, tell me about the petrodollar.
Okay.
I can put out an announcement. As we put out lots of announcements at Dreadnought, and investors can reach out directly in a public sphere and ask me or the company a question. I then get a chance to sit down and respond to that question directly in a public environment. And so investors can, on a regular basis, and I think I get around a few questions every single week, ranging from why are you doing this work, what's happening with the share price, to tell us more about volcanic massive sulfide deposits, or why is bismuth important as a pathfinder. And it gives us a chance to help educate, help bring investors along for the journey, and also build that two-way communication. We're an open book. I'm the managing director of a company, and as you said, communication with our shareholders is paramount. Investors want to wake up every day and know what we're doing with their money and make sure that we're doing the right thing to progress towards hopefully delivering a return through whatever it is our business model is. For us, that's exploration and discovery.
But again, sorry to go back to Investor Hub, but I've seen it, but I haven't really looked at it. So if I was to go onto the Dreadnought Resources page, is there a section on that where I go click on Investor Hub and I can see the answers to all those questions?
Yes.
Oh, fantastic.
You don't even have to register through the Investor Hub to see the questions.
Okay.
It's actually built into our website.
Right.
And so we have the ASX and media section.
Yep.
And it's all there. And people, even if we post media, or we put out some really cool content, we have Robin Poole in there helping us out create content and media and information packs. People can ask questions on those directly. And it's all there, and you get all the emails. Essentially, it brings through all these. You had the website, you had MailChimp, you had all these different things to try and communicate. It brings it all into one place.
Wow.
And it's a startup tech company, believe it or not. It's in its first year.
Wow.
And I'm a big believer. I'm a big supporter. My investors love it.
Okay.
They love that two-way communication, and I'm really excited to see where that goes.
Okay.
But it's like you said, it's all about getting content out, communicating. When we do this interview, or any interview we do with the legendary Carrie, that's going to go out to our shareholders in an email. People can click and people can ask questions about it.
Right.
It's fantastic.
Okay, cool. I'll check it out.
Moving on to the next question, shall we? Can you highlight a recent interview or episode that resonated with your audience? What made that stand out?
Oh, well, I'd have to say the most recent one was the petrodollar one. You know, it wasn't necessarily to do with resources per se, but it was creating, I guess there was some misinformation out there, and to be able to just quickly get something together and put it out onto the channel to allay people's fears, because there was a lot of misinformation going on. So I think that resonated with a lot. I got a lot of feedback overnight because it literally went up, and the next morning there was a ton of commentary saying thank you so much, really good information. But I think timely information is really good. And the beauty of technology, as you know, Dean, these days, when we just spoke about Investor Hub, is if you can turn these things around, sometimes they are timely.
Yes.
Like, for example, if you had an announcement coming out and it was a really good discovery, we want that on the channel out as fast as possible and letting as many people know as possible. So in terms of, I guess, ones that have impacted me, it would be Tim Manga talking about the petrodollar this week. Rick Rule, and of course I interviewed this guy called Dean Tuck. In fact, I've done a few interviews with him. He's not a bad dude, actually. But you know what? Here's the thing, when you and I chat, we chat in a way which resonates with people. It's not scripted, it's not like, it's just you and I, it's like we're sitting having a coffee and trying to explain where you're going next. I think that's why the way I do it is a little bit different.
Yeah. And that timeliness, I think, is so important. You reference positive news flow getting out of discovery as well, but then also your petrodollar. It's also that fake news. There's a lot of misinformation. There's a lot of fear mongering that can travel quickly through media and through forums and everything else. And the ability to have that communication access live, to have feedback and responses live is such a great way to have your shareholders and your investors on top of what's happening and aware of what's going on in the market. And I think that resonates across the board for whoever's engaging in the public sphere.
Yeah, I think it's true, because it comes back to what we said before, trust.
Trust.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Looking ahead, what trends do you foresee shaping the resources industry in the next decade, and how should companies prepare for them?
Trends in the next decade.
Aside from gold, clearly, gold and silver are always on the up.
Well, I do, and you know, people don't believe me when I say this, but I truly believe we are in and Tim Manga's written a book about this. It's called The Great Asset Shift. I think that governments around the world are looking and thinking, we're in all sorts of trouble. We've got, I mean, look at the US debt, look at the Australian debt, look at debt around the world, look at currencies around the world. They are losing purchasing power faster than you and I can have a cup of coffee. That's the way I look at it. So I think there's a shift. I think that we're looking at potentially the digitization of currency. So central bank digital currencies will come into fray. And as a result of that, I think real money, gold and silver, are going to absolutely come back. Of course, people sit there and say, of course you say that, you're running a gold conference. But I truly believe, if you look over time, over 5,000 years, gold is money, everything else is credit. The credit is out of control right now. And how are they going to fix it? They're going to fix it by a central bank digital currency. And they're going to fix it by people saying, well, actually, I want to go back into real assets. Because my belief is gold and silver are going to have their time in the sun, more so than anyone has ever thought about. Because the people I speak to say, oh, gold's at $3,500 an ounce Australian. We ain't seen nothing yet, my opinion. Now, I've had people say to me, oh, but we've heard all this before. Well, you know when the best time to plant a tree is? Right now. And the tree will grow. But I truly, truly believe gold and silver will be very... And I think commodities overall, and you talk about the next decade, look at the transition that's happening in terms of renewables and all that sort of stuff. That all needs commodities. People are saying copper's had its time. No. Copper's only just getting started. Uranium, oh, it's had its run. We don't have enough uranium.
No.
And we know Peter Dutton's recently put out his plan for nuclear fuel for Australia. Thank you, Peter Dutton. About time, just quietly. And people need to stop being frightened. And we need to, as an industry, we need to be better about communicating what we do, how we do it, and how it helps our environment. It doesn't destroy the environment. I was up in the Kimberleys and I was talking to a pilot, and he was going down the road of we hate mining. And I looked at him and said, do you know you couldn't fly this helicopter without mining? Oh, yeah, okay. Like, there's just that misconception. We've got to continue to educate people and stop them turning around and saying, mining's bad. No, mining gives you the lifestyle that you have today. If you don't like it, go back and live in a cave. And I know that's going to upset some people, but my opinion is you have to understand that your mobile phone doesn't come off a shelf in the Telstra shop. It comes from a lot of people doing a lot of mining, bringing a lot of commodities together to give you a computer in your hand. So until you understand that, don't tell me we've got to stop all mining.
Absolutely. Clearly, in the resources industry, I'm very much behind you on that. And it goes back even further, I believe. You go back to the first book ever published on mining, De Re Metallica.
Okay.
Going back 500-600 years. Agricola wrote this, U.S. President, oh my God.
Coolidge?
Just messed that up.
That's all right.
De Re Metallica, translated from Latin by him and his wife, transformed the WA goldfields, President Hoover and his wife.
Yeah.
But you go back and read the opening chapter of De Re Metallica. This book was published over 500 years ago.
Wow.
And it talks about the perception of mining.
Okay.
And it could be written today.
Really?
So this is a perception that the industry and society
Yeah.
has been fighting for hundreds of years. And I think as we stand on the brink of this decarbonization, electrification, is now our time to really stand up, as you say, and go, yes, mining does involve a hole in the ground, but in order for civilization to continue to advance and improve our standard of living and improve how we can improve the world is built on the back of these mines.
Yeah.
And how can we all do it right? How can we bring people together? And instead of fighting each other, how do we actually come out for a mutual benefit for everyone involved?
So important.
So important.
Yeah. What was that book again?
De Re Metallica.
De Re Metallica. What was the title of the book, or is that the author?
That's the Agricola is the author.
Oh, Agricola's the author.
Yeah, so it's written in Latin.
Oh, it's written in Latin. Oh, so
Yeah.
how am I going to read that?
Well, Hoover and his wife translated it.
Okay, you
into
did say
English.
that.
Yes.
Wow.
So I actually have a copy here in our library, so we can talk about that. But it's an amazing opening chapter to read. Because
Okay.
you read this 500 years ago, it could be written today.
Okay, let me ask, why do you think people are so anti-mining and yet they love their lifestyle? I mean, because you've looked at history and stuff, what do you think? I don't understand.
That's a hard one. No one likes a hole in the ground, but the reason they see the hole in the ground is because the road goes to the hole in the ground. And the road's there because of the hole in the ground.
Right.
So when people go out and drive through the bush, they tend to see waste dumps, they tend to see holes.
Right.
And people don't appreciate fully is that reason why they're driving down that road is because those roads were built for the mines.
Right.
And in order to have the vehicles and the support to do that drive, you also had to have the mines. So why is there a battle? That's a 500-year-old question, and probably even older than that. So, but I think that there needs to be a communication. Just like meat doesn't come from the market, primary production, it comes from farmers. It comes from everyday people. It comes from, I love primary production of all sorts, whether it's coffee or beef, being a good Texas boy, oil and gas or copper and lithium, whatever that is. There are people out there whose livelihoods depend on this extraction, and how do we do that in a constructive manner where people come out as winners?
And I think that's the whole thing, isn't it, Dean? Because it's a lot of work. People sometimes don't realise that finding some of the commodities, for example, you guys are looking gold, so your commodities, gold, rare earths, what else we got? Manganese?
We got the copper and the gold,
Copper.
and we got some niobium.
Oh, niobium as well, there we go.
Yes, we managed to have some of that.
So it takes a long time. It's not like, so sometimes I say to people, you don't just go out and turn on a copper tap. And there it is. It takes a lot of work, and I think sometimes people don't have patience for the sector. They look at it and they go, you're digging all these holes and not looking after the earth. Well, actually, I think the industry looks after the earth pretty well.
The amount of studies that we do, the surveys that we do, it's a fantastic thing. And a lot of this is as a result of having done damage in the past.
Right.
So
Yeah.
we always learn, and we're always progressing, we're always taking steps forward.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of improving the way we operate, and I think Australia is one of the leading countries for that. I know when I was doing work in Myanmar, there was lots of interest and discussion around we want to adopt the best system in the world, that is the Australian system.
Wow. Okay.
And so there's a lot of people looking at how we operate, how we look after the environment, how we look after disclosures and everything about how we operate as an industry, and that's a pretty exciting place to be. As an exploration company, and as someone who interviews a wide range of the industry, but for exploration in particular,
Yep.
what recent advancements in technology do you see as most exciting for what exploration companies can do to engage or to communicate with their investors?
Well, clearly making money matter is the most important thing in the whole universe. No, just kidding. When we talk technology, I think I said it earlier, that communication, if you're a shareholder in a company, you want to be able to know that you have access to a managing director like yourself, Dreadnought Resources, right? But that ability, it's hard for you if you're out in the field and you're working. It's a business. You've got to run the business, and here we are asking questions all the time. I think we said it earlier, the investor hub, the ability for somebody to say, well, talk to me about what you're doing in this area, or talk to me about what this terminology means, and then to be able to hear directly from you. That sort of technology is stopping what used to happen, which was I'm an exploration company and I'm just going to be busy doing that and forget about my shareholders. Don't forget about your shareholders. But I think technology advances like Investor Hub, YouTube channels, the ability for communication, conferences, that whole ability to communicate, and which allows shareholders to build trust, I think that's really key.
I think that's a fantastic message. And I look back when we first started at Dreadnought,
Yep.
not to bring it back to Dreadnought, but
Yeah,
when we
yeah, no,
first
do.
started, Paul Chapman would sit me down every day in the office, I was sitting next to him, and go, what news flow have we got? Get some news flow out.
Right.
How can we put out news flow and keep communicating with our investors, let them know what we're doing? And that was early days. I got a lot of messages from from my mentors in the industry who are saying, Dean, you look desperate. You're putting out too much news flow.
Wow.
Because we're transitioning from this period where exploration companies would only put out news flow once a quarter.
Right.
Or something that was extremely material, like a discovery or something like that. Whereas we were putting out, keeping the industry, our investors informed of what we were doing on a regular basis.
Right.
And I think that's been extremely well received. And as we've seen advances in communication, not only making money matter, making money matter and Investor Hub, but also the technologies like Starlink. I now have high-speed internet from the field. And so as a technical MD, I can be in the field, looking after the rigs, checking on the team, being on the ground, and chime in and have an interview, Carrie, live from the Kimberley or live from our sites. So I think companies, as Ben Williamson said from Investor Hub, you have to focus on the company and running the company, but also on the business. And so there's a side where we have to do our geology very well, and we have an amazing team doing that, but we also have to make sure that we're using all the technology to communicate better with our investors, because news flow is traveling so fast, because misinformation can travel so fast, and good news travels so fast. To be able to bring people along for the ride. What an exciting time that we live in for exploration.
Absolutely. And may you go from an explorer to a developer to a producer.
Absolutely. Great.
Maybe just a closing message.
Closing message?
Yeah.
All right, Carrie, before we wrap up, I've been looking forward to this all day.
Bless you.
Give me 3 things
to
take away for your followers. What 3 messages do you want to get across to your followers in the back of this conversation?
Don't you love it when they throw it back on you? Because as you all know, I often say to people like Dean, give me 3 reasons why people should sit up and take notice of you right now. Well, here we go. The 3 reasons. First of all, don't think that you can just put your money into a company, sit back and do nothing. You have to do your research. You have to reach out to the company if you've got questions, and you've got to, it's a business. You've invested in a business. Take care of your money by understanding what it is that they're doing. And if you've got questions, there are no stupid questions. I'd say that's number 1. Number 2 is know the commodity that you're going into. You know, it's like people say to me, well, I don't know anything about it, but I'm going to put some money into it. Really? Again, it comes back to understand where you're putting your hard-earned money. And I think, thirdly, be willing to be open and be educated. Because you can know a little about a lot, or a lot about a little, but actually you can never stop learning. And I think those are my 3 things. Keep learning. Make sure that you know where your money's going. No stupid questions.
Fantastic advice, Carrie. Thank you for coming in today.
Oh, it's great. It's a little chilly, so I've got my Dreadnought Resources jacket on, which is good.
Our warehouse paradise. Fantastic having you here.
Thank you.
And I look forward to our next interview with the shoes back on the right foot. And I'm the one under the hot light.
Yeah, so am I.